you kind of, before Ryan starts,
Please.
the question is, where is it hidden? And it tells us clearly where it is hidden.
Yeah.
It has always been with God.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm glad you picked up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it really is an astute observation, because these things are hidden in God. And where we will eventually get to is this is only revealed by Him.
Yeah.
Eventually, that's where we're gonna go.
Yeah.
It's a process.
It's a process.
It's a process.
Can't cover it all in the first 30 minutes.
No. You spent the better part of 10 years, I've been on this for
Yeah.
like 18 months or
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
like, whew. The first thing that I want to say is that back in Ephesians, in verse 9, you mentioned that it was hidden in God. And it's just almost passed right over who created all things. So where do you start with the mystery? You go back to creation. That's where we go, because I'm going to be dead honest with you. There has been a systematic deconstruction of biblical authority since the Garden of Eden. A systematic deconstruction of biblical authority. We have lost our Jewish biblical Old Testament understanding, what you and Larry and Dwayne were just sitting here talking about. We have lost that idea completely. We are in Acts 17 Greek culture. We are not an Acts 2 culture where Peter gets up there and starts preaching, and he's using everything in the Old Testament and the Bible, and he's convicting them left and right, and they're like, oh my gosh, what do? Repent and be baptized. We are Acts 17, where Paul goes to Mars Hill and says, I see that you're religious in every way. You've got a temple to everything. You've even got a temple to an unknown God. Well, let me reveal that unknown God to you. We are Acts 17 church, trying to reach an Acts 17, or we are in an Acts 17 world, trying to reach an Acts 17 world in an Acts 2 context. Trip over my words. Let me make sure, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay. We have settled, what we've done is we have settled for a New Testament only theology. We have settled for a Jesus only faith while continuing to lose our Old Testament understanding. A creation worldview is fundamental. 70% of pastors do not believe in a literal 6-day creation. That is an astounding number. It's because the world is opposed to faith in a literal creation. There are two worlds. We live in both. We live in both a physical world and a spiritual world, and the evidence is right here in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Typically, what is taught is that the heavens are like the sky and the universe and all of these things, and that's not wrong, because there is multiple layers to this, and the earth is typically described as the earth. But moreover, this is actually also a statement that we live in both a spiritual world and a physical world. The physical world is one where you can hear, feel, see, taste, smell. We've got the 5 senses. There are some people who would say we've got a 6th sense. I would say that this is the spiritual world, is what I would venture out to say, is that this is a spiritual world that we cannot physically see. We can't sense with our primary 5 senses, but that doesn't mean that it's not real and it's not able to be sensed. Evolution comes against this, and it attempts to nullify and science away the supernatural. Part of this systematic deconstruction of biblical authority started in the garden with the snake, the serpent, and Adam and Eve. Did God really say? What's he doing? He's taking away biblical authority. He is absolutely taking away biblical. Did God really say, you can't eat from this tree? See, the spiritual isn't just God and Jesus in heaven. It is this idea of that the Bible describes as rulers and authorities and powers and principalities, and the wackadoodle part of this is when it says gods with a little g and plural. Daniel 10 is an example of that, where we have Daniel 10. Let me get Daniel 10. Let me read this real quick. Daniel 10. Verse 10. Then behold, a hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. He said to me, O Daniel, man of high esteem, understand the words that I'm about to tell you and stand upright, for I have now been sent to you. When he had spoken this word to me, I stood up trembling. Then he said to me, do not be afraid, Daniel, for from the first day you set your heart on understanding this, on humbling yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to your words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia was withstanding me for 21 days. This is an angel coming as a messenger to Daniel, and he's talking about this prince of the kingdom of Persia withstanding him for 21 days. Who in the world is he talking about? It isn't the king of Persia. This is an angel. This is one of those rulers, powers, principalities, little g gods that is withstanding him. Evolution.
What translation of Bible are you using?
Oh, me? I've got the NASB, is what I've got. That's the New American Standard.
Would you do me a favor?
Yes.
Would you go to Genesis 2:17
2:17?
and read how they translate it?
Mm-hmm. I can.
This is back to you cannot eat.
2:17 in the NASB says, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat from it you will surely die.
Okay, shall not. This says must not in NIV.
Shall not.
Yeah, NIV does say
Yeah.
must not.
Yeah.
It's a weird, it's a weird finesse on the translation on it. It's interesting to me that it sounds like God has taught Adam something, and Adam is having to second party give it to Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's a weird. The serpent couldn't ask Adam of it because Adam would have to testify, yes, God surely did say this to me.
Eve wasn't present when that order was given.
Correct.
She was created yet.
Yeah, she wasn't
not
created yet.
yet.
And that's systematic and purposeful as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That the serpent went to
Mhm.
Eve and not Adam,
Mhm.
and that's what exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's that pattern. It's that pattern of attack that the enemy that's the only attack the enemy has against the Word of God. Is to say you weren't there. Did God really say it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
Which
oh,
is-
pretty sure he hid it in the ages past in him and has revealed it. Yeah.
Yeah. See, and this is the attack that evolution
Yeah.
makes on this, is that they attempt to science away the supernatural. Well, you weren't there. Did God really say this? It is a pure naturalistic state. So when we talk about evolution, Yes, we are referring to Darwinism, but moreover, this is a worldview. We are talking about a worldview here. The problem I'm going to say this, the creation ministries are great. You know, I love the Creation Truth Foundation, which I'm going through the cadre there. But they stop short because they only attack on the science and physical level. What we are attempting to do is to go at this from a spiritual level, is what we're attempting to do. Okay? Evolution is more than just science and Darwin. At the beginning, I talked about the systematic deconstruction. You see, we got old preacher boy over here. My drawing is not as good as Larry's. Old Johnny Preacher Man here with his little Bible. Has a problem. He's got a church that somehow has got a boatload of debt, sometimes to the tune of millions of dollars. Okay? He's got a church, and he's here in the pews, or he's here in the pulpit preaching to a church that's got a lot of debt. So he's got to do one thing. What does he got to do in order to solve this problem? He's got to get butts in the pews, right? It's the BITP. His problem is that he needs butts in the pews in order to pay off the debt of the church over here. Okay? So what they do is they create this experience. What they do is they create this experience that is based on emotionalism. Sometimes this takes the form of flashy lights and smoke and mirrors and, all of these highly emotionally charged, which usually typically happens in a large gathering. Right? Typically, not always. I've even seen some of my past really small churches fall into this category because we're trying to emulate the big boys. Because honestly, this is a pattern that can be duplicated. It is proven, and it has grown, churches from 30 to 3,000 in 3 years. It really is duplicatable. Get that word out. What happens is after we get this emotional kind of large gathering going, they recognize that they've got a problem and that people are really distant, so they need relationships. So they start small groups to go in and just kind of, we need people to start relating to each other. So we create this small group. The problem is that all the while, old Johnny Preacher Man over here is trying to get butts in the pews and pay off the debt of the church. He's doing nothing more than turning the church into churchianity. Because he preaches a message that, quite frankly, doesn't really upset anybody because he can't afford to lose the big donors. So he preaches a message that isn't really going to offend anybody, but it's morally relative, and it's highly emotional to get people in there and emotional, and all the while we are losing our biblical authority. Because Jesus is just sprinkled in as an afterthought rather than being the main subject of every sermon. And this is the problem that Johnny Preacher has. So the problem is that this is a proven method. And anybody, we can go into a church and we can grow a church. The question is whether or not Christ is going to be a part of it. So where did this come from? Where did this idea for this emotionalism and all of this stuff come from? Well, believe it or not, it did come from somewhere. And it came from a guy by the name came from a guy by the name of Auguste Comte in the 1840s. You may have, we got Facebook dwellers here? I'm on my two girls in the back. Facebook dwellers, you like Facebook. Have you ever seen The Power of Positivity? It's a page on Facebook,
Yes.
and people, I know you've seen it, right? Power of Positivity? He wrote a book, actually several books, like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And it's called Positivism. Oh, I can't spell either. Auguste Comte in the 1840s talks about positivism. And the issue is that we need a religion without a God. Okay? We need a religion without a God. So he writes this book on positivism, right? And if you're going to get a religion without a God, right? In order to have a religion, what do you need? You need a high priest, right? In order to do this, you got to have somebody who is in charge, right? You can't really have a religion without a high priest. And this high priest is he's a teacher, right? Among other things. And this teacher needs to preach a gospel of no God. And where this starts, ironically enough, go back to creation, starts with male and female. And he says where we start this is by eliminating the male-dominated religions or male dominance, of the I'm looking for a word. Not finding a word. Male dominance is what we're going to go with. I'll think of it later. And what we do is elevate the female. This room is full of mostly men, which is probably why you've never heard of the page Power of Positivity, because it's geared towards where?
Women.
It's geared towards women. Of course it is, because it's highly emotional. Right? So this is where this all starts. But here's the problem. Nobody on earth is going to pay money for a religion without a God. Who in the world is going to pay for a religion without a God? Nobody is. I mean, it's just not going to happen, right? Well, this teacher needs to have authority over a person's success. Okay? This person needs to have authority over a person's success. They need to be able to say, you know what, you can trust this person because they've got our stamp of approval. Okay? They've earned it. And what they came up with is this. Academia. They used the universities that were already started in the United States. They hijacked the academic colleges and universities and turned it into academia or intellectual elitism. You are nobody unless I say you are somebody. And what they've done, because academia, as a teacher who gets paid money by students who has authority over their success, and they are put in debt to the tunes of thousands of dollars for the first 10 years of their life. Because if you take a person out of the church for they can't donate to the church, they can't help fund the church because they are too busy trying to be successful. And we have defined success in America as this: academia.
Don't leave seminary out of that.
Right?
We're getting there. You are one step ahead of me. You're getting there. You know where I'm going with it. You know where I'm
Well, I
going with
didn't
it.
know, but it's.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
It's just like there's a pattern to this, right?
Yes.
See, and what academia is now,
There you go.
Yes, I've heard it.
Sometimes.
Yes.
is that academia is now the Church of America in the 21st century. Because if you don't go to college and get that stamp of approval saying that you can do something, you are not worth anything. It is the Church of America. And it is the gospel that they are preaching without a God. You know what the scary part is? Is that 15 to 20 years after Auguste Comte wrote that book, another guy popped on the scene and wrote another book called Charles Darwin. And he became the poster boy for this movement. Origin of the Species and the Preservation of Favored Races. If you want a book on racism, that one's it. That is a book that is so racist it's not even funny. Saying that one race is intellectually elite over another. So, we have proven, okay, we've gone back through and we've shown where this, Johnny Preacher Man, and we're going to put Johnny Preacher Man back up here, his little Bible, right? Oh, Johnny Preacher Man. See, Johnny Preacher Man, with his problem in the church of getting butts in the pews, comes into a church preaching this academic model, right? Which, by the way, is a religion without a God. And we stick them in a church, and we wonder why on God's earth the church is ineffective. It's because we have abandoned biblical authority in favor, as Romans 1 says, they have exchanged the truth of God for a lie. And it isn't just a lie, it is the lie. It is the lie of the ages.
Could you put me as the God in the academic model?
Oh, you better believe it. You better believe it.
That was
Because,
pride.
because
Talked about.
pride, one of the first conclusions that I came to after all of this happened with me was that this is not just, pride is the root, I would dare say, I could be wrong, I would dare say that pride is the root of all sin. Because it is pure idolatry. It's elevating yourself to a place of God. Creation is absolutely fundamental. And if we are going to get anywhere past this model, we have got to deal with creation at one point or another. Did God create in 6 days, 6,000 years ago, or did he not? Right? Because here's the thing. Let me just put this out here. What are we up to now? 4.3 billion?
Yeah.
Somewhere around in there? I mean, it kind of gets bigger by the day, but
Add another zero.
yeah, right. Yeah, we got another zero. When you put these two side by side, they're absolutely incompatible. I mean, it's ludicrous. Did God create in 6 days or 4.3 billion? You know, over a pile of goo. Adam was taught by God. Larry said this. Adam was taught by God. Eve was taught by Adam, and she had to hear with faith. Many people, and I am guilty of this, because when I went into school in 2008, I had not yet dealt with creation. And we came up with a million different theories of how to make that try to fit into here. Well, between the first and second verses, there is a span of years. Well, each day is a day doesn't necessarily have to be a day.
24 hours. Could be 487,000 days.
That word yom right there is this word in Hebrew that is used for day. That word was like, is what ended me. Because that word is the word that is used for day every place in the Old Testament. There is never any other word used.
Well, there are some generalities
Right.
that it
Right.
can expand, but however, when you have a definitive number and a definitive time as in evening and morning,
Yes.
it's a 24-hour day. It can also mean day.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing, is that anytime there's an argument, oh, well, a day means something different. Well, it can also mean a day.
Okay.
Well, if you start out, if you don't read Genesis literally, then you open up everything for
Yeah.
not literally reading the entire
Exactly.
rest of the Bible.
Exactly. And that is the point. At some point, and that's all I'm getting. I wasn't planning on going to the yom or anything like that, but that's the point, is that we have to deal with this. Did God create or not? Because here's the problem. Creation and creation or evolution, neither one of them can be proven. They are both. Got the red marker over there?
Probably in my pocket. I'm a notorious pen thief.
You're a pen thief?
Oh, dude, don't leave your pen over here because it'll end up in my.
Both creation and evolution are matters of faith. You either believe God or you believe what the academic model has put before you. Because here's the thing, John 3:12 says, I have spoken to you of earthly things and you do not believe. How then do you believe if I speak of heavenly things? If we can't believe what God said in Genesis 1:1, how on earth do we ever expect to believe what he says about the spiritual realm? We can't. We can't. And let me say this as a there's nothing wrong with going to college and getting a degree. Okay? I have prepared my children both, because both of them want to go to college. But what I have done is I am preparing them for the worldview that they're going to be taught. You need to, I'm not telling you what to think. My goal is to teach you how to think. I'm not telling you what to think, not in the least bit. All I'm trying to do is sit here and propose a different possibility. That's it. Larry?
let's do this real quick. If you want to take a real quick break, now's would be a great time to do that.